It's time to hit cash tags by Megan Brantley, the VP of Research at LikeFolio.com. Jenny, we're talking some Kroger, and you got some interesting facts on this grocery store chain.
I do. So I did some research because we don't have many Krogers by us. We do have Mariano's, but I know where Megan is from, they have a lot more Krogers. But I had to do some market grocery store research. So actually, if you compare Walmart, Costco, Target, and Kroger, all that have groceries, Kroger is the second biggest with 2,800 locations. So it's pretty interesting to see that of these big box retailers that offer groceries, Kroger is still second biggest
massive.
to Walmart.
Yes. Massive.
And today, it's important to know that today is kind of like the Black Friday for grocery stores because everyone's doing their last minute Thanksgiving shopping today. So Megan, I'm dying to see your data on Kroger.
Yeah, so we thought Kroger was very fitting, but also we really like how the data is setting up. So when we're looking at Kroger, we're listening for mentions of consumers shopping at Kroger, whether they're using the click list. We're also listening for, the other subsidiaries they have, like the Mariano's that you mentioned. And what we're seeing is some significant growth year over year, which is a good sign for Kroger. I think that purchase intent is up about 20% year over year. And in the meantime, if you look at that same time frame, the stock is down a bit. And so this is kind of setting up nicely as we head into, like you said, this Thanksgiving holiday as people are getting their groceries, that, people still are shopping at Kroger.
Megan, I compare some of this story in Kroger to the same thing that Target went through, right? When the whole big box attack came, Kroger, just like Target, was left for dead. From these markets. They thought Amazon buying Whole Foods would just annihilate Kroger. And what people didn't realize is Kroger is massive. And they have slowly but surely evolved into a different kind of grocer. And so now they're here to stay. They're not going anywhere. And I think your data is showing that, the big dip that shows on the chart, shows everywhere, is pretty much over for this name.
Yeah, I think that, they're transitioning really well into allowing people to buy groceries online and then pick them up, just drive to the store and not have to leave their car. I know another cool thing that they're doing, they have the scan bag and go. I don't know if you guys have ever used this, but they have these devices that you can go and you basically scan your groceries as you're shopping and then you just pay at self-checkout and leave the store. It's incredible. So I think that they're being smart and making it easier for consumers to shop there. And I think that we'll continue, we're definitely watching for strength in that grocery pickup, that digital aspect in their next earnings.
See, I go to the grocery store. I can't remember the last time I went through a checkout lane. I do it all myself.
Oh, me too.
The self-checkout.
Yeah, the self-checkout. I do it myself completely.
I think that getting digitally savvy, like Megan just mentioned, and being tech heavy at grocery stores is super important. But I also read a really interesting statistic that said $100 million will be spent by around 2025 on online groceries. But this is only a small fraction of the $800 billion that Americans spend on groceries every year. So you think online grocery ordering, at least I do because I live in a bubble, is really big. But really, it's so much smaller than the $800 billion people are still spending at physical grocery store locations. And when you have, 2,800 stores, that's a really good thing for you, of course. So our first tweet says, my main takeaway from Walmart is the U.S. shopper, especially the middle, is healthy in spending. Note recent acceleration, 2% plus comps at grocers from Kroger to Publix to Albertsons. So I'm kind of curious, Kevin, because we've talked a lot about retail winners and losers as we're coming off the heels of so many retail earnings. Do you think the grocers could be a retail winner this year? I
think the grocers are just that sleepy store. They're not sexy, right?
They're not, but we need them.
It's not, Whole Foods, where it's the Whole Foods, the whole experience. This is where the middle class of this country shops. Mm-hmm. And the middle class, shocking enough, does most of the purchase of groceries in this country, not Whole Foods in urban areas, in big cities. That is not where most of America shops.
No, and I would like to say there's only 500 Whole Foods locations across the United States. Yeah. So that's so small compared to a Kroger.
Yeah, and so the revenue numbers that they put up is massive, but the emotional trade that happened in Kroger when all this other news broke was just amazing. It was an incredible opportunity to trade Kroger.
Megan, I got a question for you on kind of this move towards the online or the pickup side of it. And I know you have the chart on it showing the growth, particularly with Kroger, but you monitor all sorts of trends across all different industries. I personally feel like I'm a late adopter in this particular space. There's still something about going to the store and like picking out the loaf of bread you want. Mm-hmm. But where do you kind of project that we are on that kind of path towards growth in that space? Do you think there's a lot more potentially to be had within this? Are we still in the early phases of growth in this particular part of the industry?
I think that, just from what consumers are telling us, so far or recently, especially for Kroger, there's definitely room for growth. I think we're seeing that growth in Walmart specifically when it comes to groceries as well, especially since people, don't actually have to go in the store to Walmart and they're improving their produce options. But I think that really you have to meet all consumers. Like, we shop click lists for as a team as LikeFolio for our snacks in the office. But I know I personally like to go in and discover things and like actually pick things up and look through and maybe see like, oh, that looks really good. And so I think that you have to meet consumers where they are, but there's definitely a strong trend to being able to pull up to the grocery store and just have somebody load their groceries in your car.
I mean, absolutely. And I think everything changes when you don't have a car, because all of a sudden picking out that loaf of bread, like you mentioned, it doesn't really matter when you have to carry everything home.
At some point, will you pull up to the grocery store and not even stop? Just slow down to 10 miles an hour and throw everything in?
That would be absolutely incredible. But Megan, of course, I know you live by a bunch of Krogers, but we are so Mariano's heavy here in Chicago, so I had to find a tweet about Mariano. So our next tweet is from Donna, who says, at Kroger and Mariano's Market, sad to see decreased quality and customer satisfaction since Kroger acquisition. Produce quality down, difficult aisles due to stocking during peak shopping times. Now 12 self-checkouts and only 3 regular. Time to move on. Hello, Whole Foods. Goodbye, Mariano's. So you talk about, of course, the middle-class consumer. Mariano's was kind of the higher-end, I think, brand of Kroger. So have you seen any happiness issues with the acquisition of a Mariano's, Megan?
That's a really good question. Whenever I looked at the happiness levels of Kroger as a whole overall, and I think they're holding pretty stable around 65% positive. I think that, obviously there are mentions like this that we're capturing where, people may be, especially for a Mariano's, these smaller brands that are more in the competition with the Whole Foods. But from Kroger, just overall, the happiness levels are pretty stable around 65%.
So quick closing thoughts here, Megan. Where does that compare to the industries in terms of a number, 65%? And then, of course, this is kind of a preview because they do report earnings before market on 12/5. What are your guys' thoughts going into that quarter in terms of what you like about Kroger, maybe what you don't like?
So far, we like that there's purchase intent growth for Kroger year over year. We like that they are showing strength in digital. We also like that they're showing strength in their private label brands. Simple Truth specifically has been performing really well according to our data. So we think that that's, a nice trajectory and something we definitely want to watch into earnings for Kroger.
All righty, Megan, great stuff. Have a great holiday, and thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks, you guys too.
All righty, Jenny, thanks to you as well.